In the last episode of Awkward Conversations.
We need to be able to look out for some of the things that kids are feeling and how they're expressing their stress, because it might not look how we think it's going to look.
So using meditation, using guided visualizations, doing some breathing, yoga, all of these are great practices to help calm the body down, to manage stress and anxiety.
I think what's great about meditation too and mindfulness is like there's science that backs up, like this is not fluff, like there are health outcomes that are.
I've suffered through 40 years of experiences and pain and heartbreak and all of this, but for kids, this is often the first time.
Yeah, I mean, even at that age, they have their little stresses, and their little problems. And they are little issues, but to them, they're big problems.
A lot of those physical symptoms that, kind of, it's like, are they sick? But really it's coming, what's happening is it's a stress symptom.
You don't have your own stress under control or your own household near most. That could cause stress down the line, and then it's like almost a ripple effect.
Hey, and welcome to this episode of Awkward Conversations. We're much more aware of how much emotional intelligence really plays into success and really plays into well-being and feelings of happiness and contentment. Life isn't always going to be perfect, but how do we deal with those things that get put in front of us? That's the living part, is how do we figure it out, take a step back, problem solve, think it through, and those are things that, we don't just automatically know. We have to learn them sort of step by step and by trying and failing. And when I fail sometimes or go and yell at my kids because I'm stressed and they, didn't pick up something and I lose my mind because there's a mess in the kitchen, really, it's not the mess in the kitchen. It's that, I have a flat tire I got to deal with, and like gas prices are high and this is happening and that. And I'll go back and say to my kids, you know what? I need you to pick up the kitchen, but it shouldn't have screamed like that. Like, it really wasn't. I'm stressed out too, so I'm sorry. I'm having a rough day. Just bear with me. Because I find for me, it allows them to see my humanity and that I'm not perfect, and that I can also come back and say, you know what, I handled that. I that wasn't cool. I shouldn't have done that. Let me go back and try and make that right. And I have watched my girls, just by modeling that behavior, learn how to do that and learn how to then go back and say, you know what, I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry. I handled that wrong. And I'm really proud of them for that. And it's not an easy skill to learn. And I think a lot of parents are maybe afraid of that, of saying that they were wrong,
Yeah, I think that's such a key piece is, I think what you said in the last part is I'm allowing them the space to do the same thing. Like that, they can come back into the kitchen too and be like, oh man, like, I kind of messed up, or maybe I didn't have to respond like that. And then we respond as the adults in their lives, thank you for acknowledging that, like, and not kind of getting on their case, right? Like having that reciprocity of expecting the same response from them as we give them.
I think the greatest thing is today is the fact that we are actually understanding that kids have stress. I grew up in New Zealand, and I grew up where you were just a kid, like you said earlier previously, Jodie. What do you have to stress about? But the fact is, we're human, so we're just built of emotions. That now that we're having the conversation, the future have only nothing but possibilities to do better than we had, because we didn't have this conversation, give it 15, 20 years ago.
That was one of the things I was going to say, is that I think often as parents, we haven't learned the skills. I know I'm 40 years old, and thank God for therapy of my own, but it's, those are where I've learned a lot of the skills and a lot of the coping and a lot of those things. And I will say, I was a single mom for a long time. My daughter's dads are involved, but as a single parent, half the time trying to take care of kids, trying to get everything done, working full time, doing all that stuff, it can be really hard to manage your stress. And I think oftentimes one of the things I talk about on my podcast, Never Thought I'd Say This, is, oftentimes we hear self-care or, de-stressing or something, and we think that involves going and getting our nails done or a massage or whatever. It can be 5 minutes sitting outside without a phone and taking some deep breaths and just centering yourself. It doesn't have to be something grand and huge. I found that little moments of self-care throughout the day are actually the most sustaining for me. If I can read a book for 5 minutes, if I can go outside and breathe, or just pay attention to the breeze. Something like that I think is really important for parents who are under a lot of stress to realize is that self-care doesn't have to be something that takes a huge chunk out of your day.
It is so important as parents to model positive behavior for our children. And especially in this day and age when we have so much media, one of the things that really became very apparent to us during COVID is even the TikTok videos, and how really the way to de-stress was alcohol, and all the moms with the wine and everything was an alcohol video to de-stress. And so it's important to talk to our kids about that, because that's not reality. It's something that our kids are seeing. So it's so important for us as parents to talk about that with our kids, and what do they think about that, and open up that dialogue for them.
Yeah, and it really comes back to that modeling behavior, that we were talking about earlier. Amy was talking about it as well, as, if our kids see us go, use alcohol to blow off steam on a Friday or Saturday night as a stress relief, they are going to think that that is the appropriate and maybe only way that you deal with stress in your life. And then, them going out with their friends on a weekend suddenly becomes incredibly problematic.
And, creating environments to have fun without substances, without alcohol, the fun moments that you can have with your children. And we talked a little earlier about mindfulness and yoga, and those are all modeling behaviors. Don't just put a yoga video on for your child. Do some yoga with your child and, have fun with it, and really help, because that really does build that connection with your kids too. And really that's the most important piece, is our kids need that connection. They want to be connected to their parents, and they want to be able to lean on us, and making that a safe environment to do so is critical.
It's really interesting because, I think thinking about the TikTok videos and the phenomenons in society around, alcohol being such an acceptable substance. And what we also know to be true is that alcohol was, more people died due to alcohol related illnesses last year than people died of COVID in the 30 to 64-year-old range. So we're talking about, young people, and, so the health effects are devastating when we're talking about, misuse of alcohol. And so, this is why this is such an important thing, to be able to help kids find ways to deal with stress before they kind of get set in those patterns, so that alcohol becomes, a primary coping mechanism, an unhealthy coping mechanism at that.
I completely agree with that. I think it's hard to shield teenagers and tweens from the social media, what they're seeing. And so really just becoming more part of the world. I like to talk to parents about how to incorporate TikTok. So instead of telling them they can't use it, let's find videos to watch together. Let's do a family dance challenge. Let's gear them towards like certain content, to be able to incorporate fun things the family can do without just saying, well, no social media, or we're not going to watch these movies. I think the conversations around what the kids are exposed to is really important. And so I work with parents and, okay, well, how do we have these conversations to point out this is not realistic, or there are these other ways that we can manage our stress, right? These are fun things that we can do, and allow them to bring their phones and let's watch this together. And just the more communication, the more openness, I think the more impact we as parents have to kind of guide our teens' behaviors.
And yeah, obviously, we can't completely protect our kids from what they see in the outside world. Now with social media, our kids are exposed to and see a lot more of the world than we did as young people. But I think, I love what Dr. Lewis says. Don't completely shut those things out and just say, no, we don't talk about them. Use those as a jumping off point for conversations, for saying, oh, what do you think about that? Like, do you think that that's like, oh, that doesn't seem, that seems weird. What do you think? Finding out where they stand on certain things, finding out, how they feel about certain videos or certain content, certain things that are going on in their world. It's super important to have that connection. And again, it's back to listening, back to building those bonds and having that relationship that really can sort of be the foundation that they grow from. And it's not always easy, and it doesn't always look perfect. But I think that open line of communication and, with social media, just being able to talk about it and being open enough with your kids so that they feel comfortable in sharing some of that information with you.
Saving lives means staying informed. Knowing the dangers of using counterfeit prescription pills can help those you care about and keep our community safe. As a parent, educator, neighbor, or friend, we all play a role in building safe and healthy futures for ourselves and our loved ones. Do your part. Take the first step today. Visit GetSmartAboutDrugs.com to access education, prevention, and treatment resources. Counterfeit prescription pills laced with fentanyl are deadly. Be their protector. Be informed. Visit GetSmartAboutDrugs.com.
We've been talking about meditation and mindfulness, and I know a lot of people may have some questions about sort of what is mindfulness? What does that mean? We hear it used a lot. I know in my experience, being mindful means just being fully present in my body and whatever activity I'm doing. I don't know, Dr. Lewis, Erin, Amy, do you guys have any tips on how to be mindful, how to be present in your own body, both for parents and kids?
Sure. There are a couple of activities that I like to use with my teenagers in session, and I talk to parents about how to integrate this in their family, kind of like daily routine. We can do a little guided visualization right now, and essentially what that is, I'll talk through taking you to my happy place, and we'll see what that looks like. So essentially, I would have you get comfortable. If you can, put your feet on the ground, close your eyes, relax your body, get into a space where you feel most comfortable. And then start to inhale and exhale. You're slowing your breathing down a little bit. And it's important that you just take long, deep breaths. So inhale in and exhale out through your mouth. So you're going to inhale in again and exhale. All right, and as you're breathing, you're going to start to picture yourself we're going to go to the beach. So start to picture yourself walking on the sand. It's a bright sunny day. And as we're walking on the sand, we can feel the heat from the sun beaming on our shoulders. And we feel the heat from the sand on our feet. As we're walking, we can feel the sand on the bottom of our feet, and we can hear the ocean as the waves come up onto shore. And as we look out to the ocean, we can see the clear water and some white clouds right above the ocean. It's a beautiful blue sky. We're continuing along on our walk, and you're inhaling and exhaling. And as you're walking, you're listening to the sounds that you hear, not just the water. In the distance, you can hear some voices. It sounds like kids playing. And you hear splashing from the water coming up to the shore, and then the waves attracting back. And as you're walking, you're still holding your ice cream that you got. And you're tasting the vanilla ice cream. As you're licking your ice cream cone, it's cold on your tongue. And you're enjoying that as the sun is beaming on you. You have the sensation of feeling heat on your shoulders, and the coldness from the ice cream in your mouth. You're going to inhale and exhale. And as you picture yourself continuing to walk along the beach, you're imagining all of the stress just coming off of your shoulders, coming out of your body. You're feeling relaxed. You're going to take another breath in and exhale. And as you slowly open your eyes, you're going to bring yourself back into the room. Take another deep breath in and exhale. And so you can do this. And for me, I like the beach. You want to make sure you're picking a place that's very enjoyable and focus on, what you see around you, what you hear, what you're tasting, you're touching, you're incorporating your senses. This is a guided visualization. It's called that because I'm giving you my narrative and I'm walking you through this peaceful place. You can do this on your own as well. And there are plenty of YouTube videos and apps that you can listen to. And this is a great way to just take a few minutes to relax, whether you're in your office or you're at home or laying in bed next to your child before bedtime, but a great way to de-stress.
That's as close to teleportation as you can get.
Really true. Sometimes sometimes I come back into my body after just breathing for like, I mean, even just that brief moment for like a minute, and I'm like, oh, okay. You know, like we were talking about, those little 1 minute, just 1 minute bits of self-care. They don't have to be huge. Stop, take a breath, breathe in, hold it, breathe out, hold it, slow your breathing, your heart rate down. All that stuff is really important, not only for parents, but for kids as well. And I know sometimes when I just stop and get like, we're going to breathe, we're just going to take some deep breaths. It really does change the environment. It changes the conversation. It changes the momentum of everything that's going on with your child at that time. So Dr. Lewis, thank you so much for that wonderful meditation. I am certainly de-stressed now. I feel much better. I'm going to go take a nap. Now, but yeah, I want to thank you so much, Dr. Lewis, Erin Wick. Thank you so much. Amy McCarthy, of course, you're joining us for all of our episodes. I really appreciate it. Daniel, you gave some great insight as to, you know, how you're raising your 5-year-old son, and best of luck on all the parenting. I know you're doing a great job. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Take care. And to all the parents out there, you're doing a great job.
Thank you so much for joining this conversation about how to de-stress for yourself, for your kids, and how to keep those lines of communication open so that when the troubling and hard situations come up, you have that foundation to work from. So ladies, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And thanks for having a not so awkward conversation.
Coming up on the next episode of Awkward Conversations.
Children of divorce, statistically are about 3 times more likely to suffer from drug and alcohol abuse than children of non-divorce, but that does not mean that that you can't mitigate the circumstances and do your very best as co-parents.
The rules aren't very similar in both households. The kids don't have the foundation from which they need to operate. So I found 2 things go hand in hand: experimenting with drugs and self-harming.
About that consistency, and open conversations, and getting through the emotional divorce between the parents to again come back to what's in the best interest of the child.
You really need to have a roadmap when you're talking to your children. It just can't be, you know what, we're going to get divorced. Okay, let's go out to dinner.
Make sure to check out getsmartabouttrugs.com. Parents, caregivers, you can find so many resources of great information there about how to talk to your kids and make these conversations a little less awkward. A huge thank you to the Elks DAP, which is the largest all-volunteer nationwide drug awareness program, and also a huge thanks to the DEA for their outreach program and for making this possible.
The views, information, or opinions expressed during the Awkward Conversation series are solely those of the individuals, speakers, commentators, experts, and/or hosts involved, and do not necessarily reflect nor represent those of the production, associates, or broadcaster, or any of its employees. Production is not responsible and does not verify for accuracy any of the information contained in the series available for viewing. The primary purpose of this series is to educate and inform. This series does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services. This series is available for private, non-commercial use only. The production, broadcaster, or its channel cannot be held accountable for all or any views expressed during this program.